Welcome, fellow villains. Andy here with kind of a special episode for you today. We've gone and talked with many of the first and second place finishers at our local set champs and asked them for some insight, advice, and some lessons learned during their rise to victory at the SCAR set champs. I'm going to start us off here. I finished first/second. We split the prize, me and a friend of the podcast, Amir, and I played a homebrewed spicy emerald steel list. This is one I'm really particularly proud of here. So we're going to break it down a little bit and go over why I think this may be a really interesting choice to bring to a local set championships. If you guys are listeners of the podcast and viewers of our live streams, you'll know I made a deal with everyone that if we got to 200 subscribers, I would play Ruby Steel in a set champs. So I was preparing for that to play at game night, which I did, and you guys can go and watch that, but I'll help you out. I didn't do so great. I finished maybe 14th, I believe. But in doing that, I realized that the strategy was essentially to try and build the list very similar to how the very popular Diggy deck is built, as well as the Harlan Sweet Sapphire Steel lists are built. They have the very same steel package that is Smee, Calhoun, Doc, Pete, sometimes the Potato Captain, Lawrence, as well as the Gantu, Pluto. These cards that are just inherently very good in steel. They pose a very large threat to the opponent that have much narrower fields of answers for them. So I paired that with Emerald. I thought maybe there's some good cards in Emerald that could go well together. And honestly, I think we hit gold here. So one of the weaker points is unfortunately only 8 1-drops. I really wanted to be able to top deck well in this list. So you do need to want to try and mulligan strong for a 1-drop, or take a strong altar for a 1-drop. But we have the Curse Merfolk and the Pegasus. Curse Merfolk, I think we all understand. Pegasus, you'll see later, we've got the Shift package in here that I think works out really, really well. Turn 2, I realized that we almost always want to be playing Calhoun. In a lot of these matchups, you're trying to control the board early. And a Calhoun is going to pose a threat to anything that might try and take out your Merfolk. I only ran 3 here, but in an updated list for this, which I'll have in the description, we do have 4 Calhouns in there. But we've got Smee, as expected, the Doc in here to refill our hand late, and of course Bonsai is a great character that trades very similar to Smee, as well as Calhoun. Doesn't have quite the same effect, but 2 lore character, great to play, especially when you play 2 2-drops down on 4. Bonsai, Smee, just to threaten big lore and ask the question, do you have extra removal for everything? We also ran at the 3-drop here, the Captain Hook. I don't know that the first effect here, while this character is exerted, opposing pirate characters can't quest. I don't expect that to do particularly too much. I guess it would shut down a Moana that doesn't have a captain in play. But really, this character was here again as a 2-quester. He has a 4 willpower, so he is good into steel. And whenever he's challenged, so if he is taken out by, say, like a Calhoun, your opponent, every time he challenges him, you get a card. So some of these challenges where it's like first you hit him with a John Silver or a Pete, and then you finish him off with a Calhoun to get 2 lore, and sure, it costs you 2 characters, but you got 2 lore out of it. You get extra cards from the Captain Hook. So Prince Philip, we've seen this in the Emerald Amethyst lists. Great character, warded, quest for 2, almost guaranteed 2. I think Grab Sword is pretty much the only thing you're going to see that would maybe take it out. John Silver and Pete, I had both one-ofs. In retrospect, I think maybe a couple more Petes and less John Silvers would have been a little better, but both those cards hold good utility. John Silver, the Potato Captain, triggers the Smee ability, And the Pete no actions saves your butt on a B prep turn for sure. Lawrence, great character. Obviously, needs something like a fox to take out. Trades with almost anything. Little weak to steal, but almost certain to get you 2 lore. Strength, I found, was a pretty good removal tool. We'll talk about the other removal tool I had. These steel packages with general sort of aggro. Not really aggro, it's more on-curve play, I like to call it. They all generally run like 4 to 6 sort of removal spells, if you will, or songs, actions, whatever they are. So we'll talk about our choice for the other part of this removal package. But as we go into the 4 cost here, again, my thoughts are really just to try and make these characters be particularly difficult to remove. Have your opponent is required to have very specific answers for them. Pluto is a great card on its own, but cards like Arthur dodges not only requires a Medusa and an ice block, dodges ice block brawl. Hans is a little weaker, but a little greedier, with the 3 lore on board. But again, dodges brawl as well as big Sisu. So in lists like Ruby Amethyst, it narrows even down to just basically the Medusa. Heathcliff dodges both of them. Dodges basically everything. Double grab sword would do it. Tinkerbell and grab sword, but at 4, he's going to almost certainly survive to quest that too. And then really the game just gets finished off with these 5 cost characters, with the exception, of course, of the Pegasus. The Pegasus is in here as the shift option. The Pegasus in future builds, I believe, I narrowed the Pegasus down to maybe one less. But the shift option on the baby Pegasus here is really, really powerful when it comes to kind of questing 2 big turns. It's not the greatest to go on in game 1 of a best of 3, but if you already understand the way your opponent's going to play and they're not necessarily going to be able to remove as much, and you can build this wide board and make it so that you shift the Pegasus onto the little Pegasus and give everything evasive and quest for a very large amount, 8 to 10 lore. They essentially can't remove or stop, any of your characters because they all have evasive. At which point they all survive and you get another really big quest out of them. So you essentially finish off the game in 2 turns, very much like the Kita package would do in some of the lists we've seen. But the other 5 drops we run, and the beauty is most of these are adjustable for the meta you expect to see. So something like Goofy is really good into Steel, because it would take 2 grab sword to get rid of. It can't be targeted. It's great into Emerald removal decks. So this Baja Blast, the Emerald Sapphire list that has popped up with You're Welcome and Mother Knows Best and all this bounce-based removal. Goofy dodges that and also gives another one of your characters the ability to dodge that as well by giving them ward when they quest. It is a little weaker to something like a Big Sisu coming down. But other than that, Big Sisu and B-Prep are pretty much the only answers for this Goofy, or as we like to call him, Peepo. Don Carnage, evasive, is still really, really strong. They would have to do the same thing that you would do to a Genie, where you play Genie and then Elsa, and then Genie and Elsa both swing into the character. So they'd have to do that to Don Carnage, but the Genie would be removed. So Don Carnage can fight back if you need to and remove an opposing Genie, but mostly you just quest. And again, with the 4 strength, it does good at dodging a lot of Ruby abilities. 4 willpower dodges a lot of steel removal. Tiana is a little heavier into the Ruby, anti-Ruby removal with the 5. It would take double ice block and a Medusa to take this character out. So again, almost guaranteed 3 lore. The Cusco have one of these promos here. So big shout out to Reckless, teammate. Grabbed one of these for me. It is a little weak to the Big Sisu, but just like Goofy, it's almost guaranteed that 3 lore. We obviously have Gantu in there, all hail. Another great character. 4 is hard to remove, a little weaker to steal. And then the final part of our removal package here is this: we don't talk about Bruno, which I find can be really, really powerful against something maybe like a Maui Half Shark, a character that has no ETB effect. And so even if they have other cards in their hand, they play that Maui Half Shark to maybe threaten like your Pegasus or your Don Carnage, or even just threaten to challenge something, get a brawl back, and be able to get a 2-for-1 out of it. The Bruno sending it back to their hand can set the tempo back quite a bit. It can give you that extra push you need just to be able to, quest all the way to 220. So ultimately, I feel like this list is very strong. You want to control the early game by using your Calhouns to threaten anything that doesn't directly trade with your other strong characters here. You also have the option of going wide and building up a big board and then protecting it with something like Pluto. But ideally, as you go through playing characters on curve, you'll end up very high in the lore count, usually 12 to 15, and you'll be able to quest and play a character like a Goofy or a Cusco to all but guarantee that last little bit of lore that you need to win the game. This deck is kind of weak to Amber Steel. The early game with the Merfolk and the Pegasus are both very weak to a Cinderella, a small Cindy, and the song package. Same with Bonsai, as well as they have the ability to also play an opposing Calhoun, but not just that, but to then build up a third character on turn 3 and then sing a strength to take out your Calhoun with their Cinderella. So if they have all of those cards, it can be very, very difficult. Not to mention the Daisy Duck is certainly annoying and has the Rapunzel potential to it. So in my match here, I did lose both 2 rounds in the Swiss portion of the event, both to very good players on Amber Steel. Very similar lists, but again, they had the much stronger early to mid game, and so I wasn't able to get the lure that I needed in order to be able to close it out with one of the finisher 5-drop cards here. However, in Top Cut, I did go against another very good Amber Steel player, and even being on the draw in 2 of the games, I was able to get the win on the play and the Game 3 win on the draw, basically by just winning the Calhoun battles and consistently posing characters that required very specific answers, often of which they just didn't have enough of. Most of these characters can't be removed with a Storm. Calhoun, Doc, Smee, Hook, Philip, all of these characters can't be removed with just a Storm. They need at least a Strength and 3 characters on the board. So all while I'm just trying to push the lure as consistently as possible and as safely as possible to 20. So probably unfavored for the Amber Steel, but still absolutely doable. So really, the question I think we'll ask a lot of these people is, would you recommend playing this deck at a local set championships? And honestly, I think the answer is yes. It's fairly easy to pilot if you're a decent Lorcana player, some fundamentals of the game. It runs very similar to Diggy or the Harlan Sweet Blue Steel list, Sapphire Steel list. And I think it will throw a lot of people off. I had a lot of people asking to read a lot of my cards, not really expecting the sort of value and power of a lot of the cards that are being played. It does really well into Ruby Amethyst, Emerald Amethyst. It should do well into Ruby Sapphire, although that is one that is relatively untested in my experience. But it should be able to go relatively fast, and a lot of the 3 strength characters should be able to dodge Sisu fairly well. Same with warded characters will be able to dodge a lot of their removal. But yeah, I think this is a deck that you could absolutely practice at a locals during the week and perhaps bring to a set championship. Especially maybe if you've already won a Scar card and you're just going to hang out with friends and have fun and play some competitive Lorcana. Not necessarily this exact list, but one similar. Like I said, we'll have the latest version in the link in the description along with this version as well. And like I said, tweak it to what you expect to see in your meta. And be sure to hit us up in the comments and let us know how it did. Find us on Blue Sky or Facebook, or come join us in our Discord and let us know, what your thoughts are. So yeah, now we've got a bunch of interviews with some of the local winners, first and second place winners, some information about their decks, their feelings on it, some thoughts. So I'll go ahead and send you guys over to them, and I hope you enjoy. See you at the end.
Hey everybody, this is Brad from Rules of Villainy. I got my friend Alec here from our league. Wanted to talk about his success that he had this weekend. How you doing, Alec?
I'm good, Brad. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. It seems you were the talk of the town for a weekend with our set championships. We had 2 this past weekend at Grapes Games and Fortuna in the reverse order. And what did you play?
The deck that I decided to do, I was going to do Ruby Sapphire. Okay. And then before that, about a week before tournament started, I had seen Harlan Sweet's deck just do the clean sweep for the Content Creators Championship.
Sure.
And that was really cool to see, because he actually played a Sapphire Steel opponent and it was like conventional, like normal Sapphire Steel with like control. And so I really was like, okay, Sapphire Steel might still be a thing. I looked at his deck list and it incorporated the Alice Pluto.
Sure.
Which for me, I was like, oh, okay, at the beginning of set 6, there's something here, but I didn't know what it was. I tested a bit and then I dropped off. But when I saw Harlan's deck doing it, I was like, oh, you have to completely get rid of the old Sapphire Steel and just go full aggro.
Which is really hard. I looked at that same deck about a week before set championship as well and thought, this looks really good. And as a Sapphire player for a long time, Sapphire Steel even during the Bucky era, I was like, I knew that deck really well. Maybe didn't pilot it very well, but what was crazy to me was there's no ramp in that deck whatsoever. No. So it really turned me off
it's terrifying.
of playing it this sets. But because I knew you to be a Ruby Sapphire player before the weekend, right? And then you brought this deck in and just made a killing with it. What was so good about it? What drew you to it?
I mean, for one, I saw that I took a chance. I kind of I sleeved up the deck the morning of, and I was like, okay, we'll see what the vibe is. And I just I kind of on the fly chose I'm gonna just do this because I knew a bunch of people there that had Ruby Sapphire.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't really want to do mirrors.
Yeah.
A lot. I would rather have fun and lose.
Yeah.
Than do mirrors all day and have a headache by the end of the day. And so I chose it on the fly. I'll do Sapphire Steel, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked really well.
I'd say it did really well. You got first place at Fortuna Games on Saturday, and then the following day you went to Grapes and played the same deck. Did you make any changes?
None.
No changes. Why would you? You just won with one, right?
No, I didn't want to make any changes. No, and I basically played the Harlan Sweets deck exactly, except for one adjustment with I didn't have 2 Scrooge McDucks.
Okay.
I've never even really looked at that card, but that card in one matchup against a Ruby Sapphire, I top decked and won me the game.
Yeah,
because
there's no Sisu, there's no Medusa. You have to double ice block it to even try to Medusa it. Like, that is a really good card.
I had a ton of fun playing the deck. I cannot take credit for it.
Sure.
I piloted it really well, but like it's an aggro deck. It was kind of straight. Like he did some videos on it that basically gave like the gist of it was play to curve, and so it's you play your 1-drop, your 2-drop, your 3-drop, and you try and get as much value out of those cards as possible. So like he had like the Sticky Mickey, the Calhouns, the Shmees, and like trying to keep those Shmees on board it's usually really hard, but with the John Silver
stops the challenge.
Yeah,
the potato captain, as Andy would call him.
Yeah, I've made an adjustment now. I'm running 4 of him instead of just 3 because I think he's really worth having.
I tried that deck over the weekend and did not have as much success as you did. If I didn't even top cut with it, I made some really bad mistakes as somebody who did not practice with it at all. Well, I guess you didn't either, and played it much better than I did. I'm going to talk about it on the podcast this week, but I had some trouble with it. But what I did find, and I think you probably got value out of as well, was I really like the synergy of Baymax into Smee. You got your Smee ticking down, and by the time you get the 5 ink, if Smee's still on board, he's got at least 2 damage on him, right? So that's 2 lore that you get back. You get a full health Smee again.
Yeah.
And then he can keep questing until somebody deals with it. And I saw that our friend Jake, our teammate Jake, he showed me that a long time ago at the beginning of the set. I'm like, I really like that. I just never pulled the trigger on pulling that or on playing that deck.
Yeah, and like the best lineup for that deck on the play is Alice, Pluto, Cogsworth. But if you do have a Baymax, especially against steel matchups, he's awesome.
Yeah.
He's not great against Ruby because
easily removable.
Sisu, Brawl, anybody can hit him. But at 6 willpower, he's a tank.
Yeah.
So
he comes in, he hasn't entered the board and continues it on every one of his quests. So you got to deal with him, or they're going to keep getting value from it.
And the other thing about this deck that I thought was wild was that it has 16 5-drop characters. So the deck is asking to top deck.
Yeah.
It's like I want to get to 15 to 16 lore, so that way when I've emptied my hand, even if I empty it with a dock and still flood the board, I still empty my hand as much as I can to then play, I got a Gantu, or I've got a Baymax, or Beast, or Scrooge.
Sure.
They all quest for 2 or 3, or in Gantu's case 4.
That makes sense, because that's what I was running into when I ran it this past weekend. Was like, okay, I've done everything I can up until turn 5, and now I'm top decking. I need that Robin Hood to be banished in a challenge. I need that Beast to trigger if I can lucky enough to get him on board. But there's not really a time. We talked about it on the last podcast where looking at this deck, there's not a lot of draw power in it whatsoever, but there's a lot of early aggression that kind of gets you there and just keeps you alive trying to get across that finish line.
Yeah, and like the thing that, because I played yesterday as well, did not do very well in the tournament either. And the times that I didn't do well was when I wasn't questing, because the deck does run out of gas, and so you have to just accept like, I'm going to lose here. Like if I don't quest here, if I don't make my characters vulnerable, you're gonna have unfavorable trades. But if you can get to that 12 to 14, ideally 16 lore amount, and you're top decking, they still have to answer those.
Sure, yeah.
But I played Brittany's deck, and I'm not going to spoil it, but it really gave me a run for my money. She was running Emerald Amethyst,
yep,
and that deck was really rough.
She's been playing that for a while. She's very good at that. At that deck. One question I wanted to ask you is, I know that I saw how your face lit up when we told you Sunday night when you were going to the finals. Harlan Sweet was actually watching you play that deck. How'd that feel?
Like that was crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, I wasn't expecting him to see that.
It didn't add any pressure. I was tempted to not tell you because I didn't want to put more pressure on your shoulders, like in going into that finals match. But I was like, that has to be such
we should talk about the finals match because
sure.
Yeah. But the Harlan's thing was that that was really cool for him to be in there. Like I was honored to that he was in.
Yeah,
like, he'd heard,
so
like,
were we. Anytime a notable person in the Lorcana community joins, our live streams or comments on anything, we're like, oh, that's so cool. We see you on YouTube and on all these platforms or whatever. And when Harlan jumped in, I was like, oh my God, Alec's gonna love this. Like I would want to know. But yeah, he was even talking in the comments as well about the matchup into. We're talking about the Amber Steel matchup that he had in the finals on our live stream, where it's a really hard matchup, especially on the draw.
On the draw,
yeah. So how did it feel? Did you have any opportunities you think you could have capitalized on that? Or
I know that you guys have talked about it. Kirsten has talked about it with Andy and how she made some misplays in the first and second games. That was in my favor. But when it got to game 3, if you look at my hand, I mulligan 6 cards, and I still don't get a 1-drop.
Really?
Yeah, so I had a really poor hand on that third game on the draw, and she went wide and really hyper-aggressive, and there was just nothing I could do. Even if I was looking back, like, if I had teched in a Twin Fire card instead of that Baboom to take out, because I think that's what I ended up doing, even to take out, like, a Lilo and the Pluto to set up the trade for Calhoun, it still wouldn't have been enough. She still had game 3.
That deck just goes.
It goes. She totally was like, I'm just going to go. And that was the right call.
Yeah.
That deck, it doesn't have the answers. Early, what does against that? That
it's
really
one of those
aggressive.
decks. Your deck, the Blue Steel, is one of the ones too that I think caught a lot of people off guard, because through this whole meta so far in Azurite Sea, Blue Steel, Sapphire Steel hasn't really had a lot of representation.
Right.
There might have been a few at the North American Continentals or some of the DLC. I think there was a single DLC in this set, maybe not. But
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but Blue, for the last couple sets, it's just kind of not been up there with the other ones. So coming in hot with that and taking the weekend like you did, but a lot of people probably didn't have practice against it, to know that like what's coming next.
Yeah, and I didn't really, like, I had practiced it before, and I was kind of keeping it on the down low, like, that I was, like, thinking about doing it, but I really wasn't planning on it until the night.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really practice with that deck, but the simplicity of it, the deck was just play on curve and quest.
Yeah.
Like, that's really all, and challenge with Calhoun and Robin Hood.
Sure, yeah. That's another mistake I made, was I haven't played Steel in so long that I quested with Robin Hood yesterday. Instead of taking care of his board and getting the same value out of the lore gain. So just little things like that where I got ahead of myself, and you obviously adhered to it a lot better than I did. Playing a new deck for the first time. But yeah, we're congratulations again for your success. It was really incredible to see you. I keep gloating this weekend about how well you did this weekend. But
it was a shock to me. It was such a great weekend.
Yeah.
And I was just like very happy that it happened the way it did. I can't take credit for the deck. It was Harlan's deck.
Half of it is piloting, though, too. You're experienced enough in this game. I see you come up here for our league every Monday night and play these different things and have a sharp mind for the game, right? So taking a deck. I mean, we all see what the pro players are playing and try to spice it up to our. I just explained spice to Jamie a little bit on flavoring the deck to our the cards that we like and everything. But with your mindset of the game and it's easy, I would say, for you to pick up a deck and know what it's supposed to do and everything. So maybe not taking credit for the deck itself, but you should absolutely pat yourself on the back for the way you piloted it. So congratulations, man.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us tonight. Yeah. Take care. And we'll see you guys later.
All right, I'm here with one of Rules of Villaini's top team members, my lovely wife, and the winner of the Grapes Games Azurite Seas Set Championship, Kirsten. Congrats on your win. How did it feel to win what is currently, I believe still to date, the largest set champs we've had for this set in the St. Louis area?
A little unexpected, to be honest, but kind of overwhelming at the same time, and just overall really exciting. Like, it was a really good feeling, being able to go through the whole day and not have lost. And I normally don't even make it to Top Cut, honestly, or at least the last couple of championships I kind of rarely do well. One or two maybe good wins, but I feel like I'm getting more consistent with my wins. So it feels good to make it to the top of the top at a big event.
You decided on a sort of aggro amber steel list, similar to what some would call like the Diggy deck,
Mm-hmm.
which we've seen before. What made you decide on this deck, and how did it feel piloting through the event?
Well, I just thought it looked fun overall. Before, I think a while before set champs, I had started playing it at our local league on Thursdays, and it was quite fun. It was a lot different than what I had been used to, and I really couldn't find anything previously that I liked or could settle on that felt good. And it was finally something I was like, okay, this is kind of fun, and it feels okay. I don't really normally like aggro. That wasn't something I had played before, but it's kind of a little bit of a different take on aggro, and I was seeing that the meta in general was going faster and becoming more aggro, so that played into my decision to bring it to set champs, as well as I know a lot of people in our local area play Ruby Amethyst and Ruby Sapphire, and the goal is just to go faster. So
Well, and it definitely worked. Um, did you have any particularly tough matchups? Like, were there any in combinations that you were most afraid of or worried about going into? And if so, did you have to face them, or did you get lucky?
well, my first goal was to try to win the die roll, obviously, because I knew that my odds were always better if I won the die roll. And I did get lucky throughout the day being able to win the die roll, and then going into Top Cut being first seed obviously was a huge benefit. But I did have quite a few tough matchups. One of the most interesting ones was the Blurple deck in round 3, Link. It was a very, very tough matchup. I won the die roll, but obviously Blurple is a lot of control, a lot of bounce, and a lot of being able to take out my characters and make the game go on longer, which is not good for my deck. I need to go fast and go fast quick, because the longer the game goes on, the more likely it is that they're just going to be bouncing Hades or Elsa back and forth and keeping me from being able to do anything at 18 lore. But luckily I was able to win the die roll and kind of just stick to my plan and go faster, but it was a very tough matchup.
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of Blurple lately. I know the mayor is a big fan of it for sure. Um, so what would you say is the best card in your deck, like specifically as it related to the games you played in the tournament? Was there like an MVP, will you say, of your deck for this tournament?
I think the most obvious is Daisy, but I really do like Doc and Pluto in it. Pluto did a lot of good work. He was a very good dog that day. Did a lot of good things for me. And Doc always showed up when I needed him to, right alongside Daisy, and then maybe another card that I could play right then and there. So those three in combination with all of the other things in my deck really kind of helped me keep winning. So those are my three MVPs, I would have to say.
Definitely. Were there any cards in the list that, you feel like you could have done without, and or the reverse, maybe some that you wish you had or wish you'd had a few more of?
Not necessarily. It felt really good all day. There wasn't anything that ever showed up in my hand that I was like, I don't really want this, except for if I had two docs, but you live with it. But there was never any cards where I just like hated it in my hand. If I didn't need it, I could just ink it, like the Rapunzel's Tower. It's very if I really had that option of like maybe like a mirror would be a good option for the Rapunzel's Tower. I had that in there just for fun. I saw it in a couple of other decks, did well, so I thought it would be good just in case other people were playing Amber Steel. But the other option was like the Shenpao, kind of a different, spicier card to throw in there, and a lot of times I would just play the Pluto because it's one less ink. But it was nice to have just in case, because it's not Medusaable. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's really nice. So do you think you would have put in maybe a fourth Pluto or a third or fourth Shempo in exchange for maybe one of those Rapunzel's towers or something, or did you like the amount you had?
I liked the amount I had. I never felt like I needed anything extra. Felt like everything I needed was right where I wanted it.
Nice. So you also played in the game night set champs, which I want to say was the second largest set champs in the area, or certainly close to one of them. And you were able to get top 4 in that event. So definitely becoming more and more consistent, and you do really well in a lot of these events. You're piloting a different steel deck, though, the Sapphire Steel. What made you decide to switch to that deck? And did one feel, maybe more fun to pilot, or particularly more strong? It felt it was stronger when piloting between the two.
Well, I know that the day before we had seen quite a few more Diggy decks or versions of Diggy decks. So I didn't want to go back to the Diggy deck. I'd already played something else like that
Amethyst
day.
Steel.
Yeah, the Amethyst Steel. I didn't want to keep playing the Diggy deck after I won with it. I just wanted to try something different. But I do really like the Steel package. Obviously, I think it's the best ink color or ink option that we've got available at the moment. But I wanted to see, obviously, you had built something else with Steel as well, and just exploring those other options, and then seeing Alec obviously doing well with it. It looked like fun, so I thought it would be fun to try that, and I know that you had helped build one already, so I picked that up. Hadn't played with it before, but it was definitely a lot of fun. A different version of fun than the Diggy deck. I really like all of the ward in there because, unbeknownst to me, there was even more Amber, Steel, and Diggy decks in that championship. And I faced a lot of them, and having that ward package really came in handy with the songs and everything that I had seen. And just being able to go fast at the same time and having all of the same Steel options as everybody else.
Okay. So I was gonna ask some of your standout cards, but I know you said the ward cards in there. You've got the 2 Wendy darlings at the 3 drop, and the 3 Cogsworth, and the 3 Alice.
Yeah, I think Alice is honestly the standout card in that deck. I really do like the Tadashi giving the 2 ink, but just being that 2 lore, 2/2 threat. Ideally taking out whatever may attack him. Even if he is banished in a song, I still get the ink from that. Which obviously just helps me go even faster because I'm just trying to dump my hand. The same with the Diggy deck because I do have Doc in that as well. So that is also very nice. Same with the Pluto, also was in there. But really just the Alice, I think, is the standout card in that deck.
Yeah, and I think it was not until after the tournament that I saw you playing another game where you finally got the Baymax out and got to do that fun combo. So I know it wasn't a very standout card in the tournament, but you know, were you able to at least play Baymax or use him, or did you like that card in the deck, or
I think
was it
it's
really
really
just,
fun.
hard to find?
It is really hard to find. And hard to find at the right time. Most of the time, the characters don't live that long for me to be able to get him out there. I think that was, if you saw it that one time, that was probably the only time I got it out that day. But I do really like it in there. I wouldn't take it out. I think it's fun. The only reason I would take it out is to swap it out with the promo from the NA Continentals because I'm sad you didn't put it in there. So if I
I'm
play that
sorry.
again this weekend, you're putting it in there for me.
All right. Yeah, I think the Cogsworth only gains you 2 lore at most, right? When you play it, because it's up to 2 health, and so
You mean the
there's
Baymax
only
when I play it?
the
Yeah,
Baymax.
you
What did I
said
say?
Cogsworth.
Sorry. So
Yeah.
the Baymax only can give you two lore when it heals up to 2 health from a character. And I feel like a lot of your characters, like Smee is mainly your best target with that. A lot of your other characters, you don't want to attack with them. If you attacked with them to get damage on them to then heal it, you're getting pretty much the same amount of lore, if not less, than you would have gotten if you had just quested with them.
Yeah.
Because your characters are all worth more than that. It could also be nice on a beast. I could see taking the damage off of a beast to get your draw back.
Or if they just like potentially hit me with a storm or something that damages me for 2. Not necessarily challenging me.
All right, so I know we were playing in a few more set champs for the fun of the competition in hopes of winning some extra cards, maybe for some future ROV events. Any plans to play either of these decks again? Amber Steel, Steel Sapphire?
I wasn't originally planning on it. I was practicing and playtesting with some other fun decks, specifically the Red Fossa deck. But it is very inconsistent in my opinion so far. But we'll see. I'm itching to go back to the Sapphire Steel. Honestly, it was so much fun playing it. So I think I'll probably end up playing that, but only if you put the Baymax in there for me.
All right. Well, so if you had to give a recommendation to our viewers on which deck they should bring to their local set championships, to try and obviously win a card or a playmat, which one of the 2 that you played, or maybe even one that you played, something different, what would you recommend that they take and why?
Well, I guess it obviously depends on what you've got in your local area. Take that into consideration because that is obviously a big factor. That's what drives my decisions usually, along with what I want to play. But I would probably go for the Sapphire Steel over the Diggy deck because a lot of other people are playing the Diggy deck, and I think that if you're going for one of the 2, you should play the Sapphire Steel because of the word. You still have the same steel options, and I think that it's just got more viable options to take on the Diggy deck as opposed to going against the Diggy deck in a mirror, because that's just kind of like whoever wins dice roll.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thanks again for spending some time to do this interview with me. Congratulations again on your win, and I'm sure we'll do great in our future events here together.
Hopefully.
Where can any final thoughts, and where can the people find you besides sometimes here on our YouTube?
Instagram. I'm on Instagram at ROV Kirsten. I'm also on Blue Sky and TikTok. TikTok, since it's still there, I guess, until it's not. So you can find me there. I guess I'm also technically on formerly known as Twitter, but I'm never really on there, so I wouldn't bother. But if you're looking for content on it, specifically like set champs and how the games are going, I have been pretty good at updating how those go for myself, at least. I don't know about you. I don't know how you've been doing with updating how you do for rounds. But if you wanted to follow along in set champs, for me, at least, that's normally posted on Blue Sky. So I will be putting those up this weekend and the following weekend, except for on the 8th, because we are busy.
Yeah, we'll see everyone there. You'll be commentating that, right?
Yeah, casting it with you guys.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. We're excited to see everyone there. Well, thanks again.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Mikey. We're going to talk about your experience yesterday at Game Euphoria. I heard you did a really good job.
Yeah, I got second place.
Second place in your set championship. Is that your first time?
Yes.
You got your first playmat.
Yep.
That's incredible. Tell me about it. How'd you feel?
I felt really good, and I also got a banner.
A banner, one of the promo banners, right? Who was on it?
Stitch.
You got the Rockstar Stitch banner. That is really cool. What are you going to do with it?
I'm probably going to hang it up somewhere.
Hang it up somewhere in your room, probably? On your door? Maybe. Yeah. How'd you do? How'd the game feel? What color cards did you play?
I was Amethyst Amber.
Amethyst Amber. That sounds like you. Yeah.
And my blue saved my life.
I'm sorry?
2 blues in my hand saved my life.
2 blues. Yep. He's a good card.
He had a big Sisu in hand.
Okay.
And then he was going to play it, but then blue would be banished.
That's right.
And I was at 18 lore.
Sure. So you play blue, big Sisu comes out, instant 2 lore for you when he's banished.
So
that's incredible.
And then that was my second to last round, and then I played Jimmy, which he won.
Yep. Saw Jimmy took the win there.
Yeah, and
he's a tough opponent.
I also wanted to get the second place mat too.
Yeah. I like the second place mats without the champion. The champion's really cool. But I think it looks a lot cleaner, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really cool. Awesome. Are you gonna play on it?
Probably soon.
Soon.
But not yet.
Not yet. That makes sense. Well, are you excited about the future future set championships and the next set?
Next week I'm gonna go to one.
You're gonna do what?
Next week I'm going to one.
You're going to one next week. Awesome. You feel good? You gonna play the same deck?
Yep.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck. You got anything you want to say?
No, not really.
Not really? Well, I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Congratulations.
You too.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for this video. Hope you picked up some tips and tricks. Hope you liked some of the decks that people ran and gave you some good insight and advice. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Check out all the deck lists down in the description. And we'll see you every week on our podcast.